The Elefant was a Schwerer Panzerjäger, a tank destroyer, of the German Wehrmacht during World War II. It was built in small numbers in 1943 under the name Ferdinand, after its designer Ferdinand Porsche, using tank hulls that had been produced for a cancelled German heavy tank design. In 1944, after modification of the existing vehicles, they were renamed Elefant. The official German designation was Panzerjäger Tiger and the ordnance inventory designation was SD. KFZ 184. Development history. Porsche GmbH had manufactured about 100 chassis for their unsuccessful proposal for the Tiger tank, the Porsche Tiger, in the Nibelungen work factory in Sankt Valentin, Austria. Both the successful Henschel proposal and the Porsche design used the same Krupp design turret. The Henschel design had its turret more or less centrally located on its hull, while the Porsche design placed the turret much nearer the front of the superstructure. Since the competing Henschel Tiger design was chosen for production, the Porsche chassis were no longer required for the Tiger tank project. It was therefore decided that the Porsche chassis were to be used as the basis of a new heavy tank destroyer, Ferdinand, mounting Krupp's newly developed 88mm Pak 43/2 anti-tank gun. This precise long-range weapon was intended to take out enemy tanks before they reached their own range of effective fire. Ferdinand was intended to supplant previous light tank destroyers, like Marder II and Marder III, in the offensive role. A similar gun was used in the lightly armored Hornisse tank destroyer, built in parallel. Design, chassis. The engines had already been placed in the middle of the hull to accommodate the Krupp design turret that both the Porsche and Henschel contenders used for the initial Tiger tank contract, and that placement for the Porsche design contender gave room on the Ferdinand for the anti-tank main gun armament at the rear. The gun was mounted in a simple, casemate-style box structure, with slightly sloped sides, on top of this chassis. The driver and radio operator were in a separate compartment at the front. As the engines were placed in the middle, the radio operator and the driver were separated from the rest of the crew and could be addressed only by intercom. Add-on armor of 100 mm was bolted to the front plates, increasing the plate's thickness to 200 mm and adding another 5 tons of weight. Drive. The two Porsche air-cooled engines in each vehicle were replaced by two 300 PS Maybach L120 TRM engines. The engines drove electric generators, which in turn powered electric motors connected to the rear sprockets. The electric motors also acted as the vehicle's steering unit. This petrol-electrical drive delivered 0.11 km per litre off-road and 0.15 km per litre on-road at a maximum speed of 10 km per hour off-road and 30 km per hour on-road. Besides the high fuel consumption and the poor performance, the drive system was also maintenance-intensive. The sprockets needed to be changed every 500 km. Porsche had experience of this form of petrol-electric transmission extending back to 1901, when he designed a car that used it. Suspension for the slack track-equipped Elefant consisted of 6 twin bogies with longitudinal torsion bars, without any overlapping wheels or return rollers. What appears to be 2 sets of drive sprockets, at either end of the vehicle per side, actually comprises a front sprocket that engaged the track with a drum brake unit built into its hub to act as the track brake, with the electric drive motor at the rear on each side, powering the track's rear drive sprocket. Armament. The vehicle was fitted with an 88mm Panzerjäger 43/2 gun. This 71 caliber long gun had originally been developed as a replacement for the famous 88mm anti-aircraft gun that had been used against Allied tanks in the Western Desert Campaign. It had a much longer barrel than the L/56 guns, which gave it a higher muzzle velocity. It also fired a different, longer cartridge. These improvements gave the 88mm L/71 significantly improved armor penetration ability over the earlier 88mm. Although it lost the competition to the 8.8 cm Flak 41 and never became an anti-aircraft weapon, it was turned into the very successful Pak 43 anti-tank gun. As fitted, the gun was capable of 25° traverse and a similarly limited elevation. Production: 91 existing Porsche Tiger chassis were converted. the work was completed in just a few months from March to May 1943. Modification Elefant. In September 1943 all surviving Ferdinands were recalled to be modified based on battle experience gained in the Battle of Kursk. During October and November 1943, 48 of the 50 surviving vehicles were modified by addition of a ball-mounted MG-34 in the hull front, a commander's cupola for improved vision and the application of Zimarit paste. The frontal armor was thickened and the tracks widened. These changes increased the weight from 65 to 70 tons. The improved vehicles were called Elefant and this became the official name by Hitler's orders of May 1, 1944. Possibly as a stopgap before the Elefant modifications were available for the original Ferdinand vehicles, the rarely seen Krumlauf curved barrel upgrade for the Sturmgewehr 44 assault rifle was allegedly meant to allow crews of Ferdinands to defend their vehicle without exposing themselves. 3 Panzer Tiger or Edgar armored recovery vehicles were built in autumn 1943 from Tiger prototypes and 1 battle-damaged Ferdinand not suitable for the Elefant modification was converted into a Panzer Tiger or Tiger, an experimental breakthrough vehicle. Combat history. Kursk. Ferdinands first saw combat in the Battle of Kursk, where 89 were committed, representing the most concentrated usage of the vehicle in World War II. The Ferdinand was optimized for destroying Soviet T-34 tanks and 76.2 mm anti-tank guns from behind the front lines, at a range of over 3 miles, with its 88 mm Pak 43/2L/71, a role at which it performed well. However, after advancing through the initial line of Soviet resistance, it was hampered by a variety of flaws, such as the lack of peripheral vision blocks, a rotating turret or even a single machine gun as secondary armament. Soviet infantry, quickly recognizing this flaw, could easily hide in their trenches until the Ferdinand advanced through their lines, then swarm the vehicle with grenades and Molotov cocktails from the sides. While this proved a significant disadvantage, a more significant problem at Kursk was mine damage and mechanical failure. Any damage to the tracks or suspension negated the protection of the armor as crews were forced to dismount and attempt repairs, and the extremely heavy weight of the Ferdinand meant towing was a dicey proposition. The standard armored recovery vehicle in German service at the time was the Panzer IV, a variant of the Panzer IV which could tow a single Panzer IV without assistance. It was insufficient for larger vehicles, with the Tiger I heavy tank requiring 3 Panzer IVs to be towed, and the Ferdinand requiring 5 Panzer IVs linked in tandem to pull the vehicle off the field. In the initial stages of the Kursk battle, heavy vehicles were able to be recovered and repaired with relative peace at night. This at first allowed the majority of knocked-out Ferdinands to be rescued, repaired and returned to duty. However, once the tides had turned against the Germans and they fell back on the defensive, functional Ferdinands with minor damage to their tracks or suspensions had little hope of recovery and crews were usually forced to destroy the vehicle to avoid an expensive, mostly intact tank destroyer falling into the hands of the Soviets. The units were deployed at a company level, sometimes subdivided into platoons, with infantry or tanks in accompaniment to protect the flanks and rear of the vehicles. On the attack, this Jagdpanzer was a first strike vehicle, while in defense, they often comprised a mobile reserve used to blunt enemy tank assaults. Although the Elefant modifications improved the vehicles, some problems could never be fully fixed. In 1944 the Elefants served on the Italian front but were rendered rather ineffective, as their weight of nearly 70 tons did not allow them to use most Italian roads and bridges. As at Kursk, most Elefant losses were not as a direct result from combat, but resulted when mechanical breakdowns and lack of spare parts compelled their crews to destroy and abandon them. One company of Elefant saw action during the Soviets' January 1945 Vistula Oder offensive in Poland, and the very last surviving vehicles were in combat at Zossen during the Battle of Berlin. The Ferdinand Elefant may have been the most successful tank destroyer employed during the war in kills per loss, reaching an average ratio of approximately 10:1. During the Battle of Kursk, the 653rd Heavy Tank Destroyer Battalion claimed to have knocked out 320 enemy tanks, for the loss of 13 Ferdinands. This impressive average ratio was due to its extreme firepower and protection, which gave it an enormous advantage when used in head-on combat or a static defensive role. However, poor mobility and mechanical unreliability greatly diminished its operational capability. The Elefant and Nashorn were both superseded by the Jagged Panther, which mounted a similar gun. Survivors: only 2 of these vehicles survived the war. One Ferdinand was captured by Soviet forces at Kursk, and is now at the huge Kubinka Tank Museum outside Moscow. An Elefant was captured at Encio by the Americans, and is now part of the United States Army Ordnance Museum's collection at Fort Lee, VA. The example at Fort Lee was restored to display condition in 2007–2008, as documented on the show Tank Overhaul, and fortunately not in its original paint scheme. See also, Su-152, a Soviet self-propelled heavy howitzer which earned the nicknames Vorovoi for its ability to knock out elephants, as well as Tigers and Panther tanks. Notes. References. External links: information about the Panzerjäger Tiger, p. Ferdinand Elefant at Panzerworld, World War II vehicles, Achtung Panzer website. Photogallery, very large Russian photogallery, Elefant at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Photos at 5-star General Site, photos of disabled and destroyed Ferdinands of 5. Schwerer Panzerjäger 80 along 654 at Ponary railway station during Operation Untitled